All right, so we're reading the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. We've almost completed. We've got just about an eighth of an inch left to go here. We're on page 991, and the chapter is chapter 52. It's after the passing away of Sri Ramakrishna, and all the monks are in their makeshift monastery at Bharanagore, which is really kind of a dilapidated and haunted building, and just being new monks, really, for the first time after the master passing away. And we get a really nice picture of just how close they are and their relationships together as we drop in on them here. They've been talking together as they were approaching the monastery on the Yoga Vashishta. And now they've gotten to the monastery and they've been talking. And it goes on here, it says the members, well actually let's start where they're in Garawa here. Let's see, where does it say that? The members of the monastery were clad in Garawa. M to Narendra. It is really very hot. One is liable to get sunstroke. Narendra. I see that your body is the obstacle in your path of renunciation. Is that so? I mean you, Devendra Babu. M laughed and said to himself, is it merely the body? After bathing, the devotees returned to the monastery. They washed their feet and entered the worship room. Saluting the deity, they offered flowers. Narendra was a little late in coming to the worship room. He found that there was no flower left on the tray. There were only a few bell leaves. He sprinkled the leaves with sandal paste and offered them to Sri Ramakrishna. He rang the bell, saluted the deity again, and joined the other brothers in the big hall, which is known as the room of the Dhanas. Now, apparently, we read last week that the brothers were referring to themselves as the Daityas and the Dhanas, the demons and companions of Shiva. And so they've got a room here. And I think actually this is the room that, well, I think they might say that on the next page, actually. So we'll never mind there. Here it is. The members of the Mat called themselves the Dhanas and the Daityas, which means the ghosts and the demons, the companions of Shiva. They took these names because of their utter indifference to the world, to worldly pleasures, and to relationships. The southernmost room of the second floor was used for meditation, contemplation, and study, and was known as Kali Tapasvi's room, since Kali used to shut himself in there most of the day. North of this room was the worship room, and north of that, again, was the room where the offerings for the worship were prepared. From this room, the devotees used to watch the evening worship. North of the offering room was the room of the Dhanas, a very long hall where the members of the Mat used to assemble. Here the householder devotees and the visitors were received. North of this hall was a small room where the devotees took their meals. East of the worship room of the Kali Tapasvi's room ran a long veranda, at the southwest corner of which was the library of a society of Bharanagore. Between Kali Tapasvi's room and this library was a staircase, and north of the dining room was another staircase leading to the roof. Narendra and the other members of the Mat often spent their evenings on this roof. There they devoted a great deal of time to the discussion of the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna, to Shankaracharya, Ramanuja, and Jesus Christ, and of the Hindu philosophy, European philosophy, and the Vedas, the Puranas, and the Tantras. Narendra, who had a beautiful voice, used to sing in the room of the Dhanas and teach music to Sharat and a few others. Kali used to take the lessons on the instruments. Many, many happy hours were spent together in that hall, dancing and singing. You know, I can't help just being a member of the monastery myself, just kind of thinking the fun they must have been having and what an exciting time that was for them. You know, of course, they have processed the passing of Ramakrishna, which I'm sure never really went away. But they have a monastery now. You know, it's kind of a broken down, haunted place. But you can see the fun they're having, calling the room the Dhana, or the demon room, the ghost room, you know, and naming themselves after the band of Shiva's demons. And just the love that's going on there, the many happy hours that they spent together in the hall, dancing and singing. You know, that's, it'd be a great monastery right there. these relationships with these really just boys. They're all in their early 20s, or most of them at this point in their 20s. And to think that they are the ones that really, well, I know I owe everything to, and certainly this place owes everything to, and their sense of adventure and going around the world to talk about these teachings and the things that they'd learned, you know, the things that Ramakrishna had done in their lives, and turned them really, turned them on their ear in a blessing. It's incredible. So Narendra is sitting with the devotees in the room of the Danas. The conversation turned to religious preaching. M to Narendra. Vidyasagar says that he does not speak about God to anyone for fear of being caned. Narendra. For fear of being caned? What does he mean? M. Well, this is what Vidyasagar says. Suppose that after death we all go to God. The emissaries of death will have sent Keshab Sen there too. Keshab Sen, no doubt, committed sins while he lived on earth. And when that is proved, perhaps God will say, give him 25 stripes. Then suppose I am taken to God. I used to go to Keshab Sen's Brahmo Samaj in my earthly life. So I too have committed many sins. So I too am ordered to be caned. Then suppose I say to God that I acted in that sinful way because I listened to Keshab's preaching. Well, thereupon God will ask his emissaries to bring Keshab back. When he is brought, the Almighty Lord will say to him, did you really preach that way? You yourself knew nothing about spiritual matters, and yet you had the hardihood to teach others about God. Emissaries, give them 25 stripes more. Everybody laughed. M. Therefore, Vidyasagar says, I cannot take care of my own self. Should I be foolish enough to get additional caning for misleading others? I myself do not understand God. How shall I lecture to others about him? Narendra. How has he, who could not understand God, understand other things? M. What other things? Well, he says that he has not understood God. But then how can he understand charity and doing good to others? How can he understand then about the school? How can he understand about educating boys by establishing schools? How can he understand that it is right to enter the world, to marry, and to beget children? He who rightly understands one thing understands everything else. M to himself. Yes, Ramakrishna too said that he who knows God knows everything else. Further, he said to Vidyasagar that leading a worldly life, establishing schools, and so on are the outcome of rajas. The master said that Vidyasagar's philanthropy was due to the influence of sattva on rajas. Such rajas is not harmful. After their meal, the brothers of the monastery rested. M and Chunilal were conversing. Chunilal told M of his first visit to Sri Ramakrishna at Dakshineshwar. He also told him how at one time he had felt disgusted with the world. He had renounced it and had wandered about in holy places. A few minutes later, Narendra came and sat by them. He asked the younger Gopal to prepare a smoke for him. The latter had been meditating. Narendra said to him, I say, prepare a smoke. What do you mean by this meditation? First of all, prepare yourself for spiritual life by serving God and holy men. Then you will be able to meditate. First of all, karma, and then meditation. Everyone laughs. There was a big plot of wooded land to the west of the monastery compound. M was seated alone under a tree when suddenly Prasanna appeared. It was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Where have you been all these days? Everyone has been so worried about you, M asked. Have you seen the brothers? When did you arrive? Prasanna. Oh, just now. Yes, I did see them. M. You left a note saying that you were going to Vrindavan. We were terribly worried about you. How far did you go? Prasanna. Well, only as far as Konagar. Both of them laughed. M. Well, sit down. Tell me about it. Where did you stop first? Prasanna. Oh, at the Dakshineshwar temple garden. I spent one night there. M. Smiling. What is Hazra's present mood? Prasanna. Hazra asked me, what do you think of me? They both laughed. That would be a reference to Ramakrishna. He used to ask that when he was one of his spiritual moods, usually as a child. What did you think of me? What did you say? Oh, I said nothing. M. And then? Prasanna. Well, then he asked me whether I had brought tobacco for him. Both laughed. Prasanna. He wanted me to wait on him. They chuckle. M. Where did you go next? Prasanna. Well, by degrees I got to Konagar. I spent the night in the open. I intended to proceed farther and asked some gentleman whether I could procure enough money there for a railway ticket to the upcountry. And what did he say? Prasanna. Well, they said, you may get a rupee or so, but who will give you the whole fare? Both laughed again. M. Well, what did you take with you? Prasanna. Oh, 1 or 2 pieces of cloth, a picture of the master. I didn't show the picture to anybody. Shashi's father came to the mutt. He wanted to take his son home, and during Sri Ramakrishna's illness, Shashi had nursed the master for 9 months with unswerving zeal. He had won a scholarship at the entrance examination for his academic ability and had studied up for the BA, but he had not appeared for the examination. His father, a poor Brahmin, was a devout Hindu and spent much of his time in spiritual practice. Shashi was his eldest son. His parents had hoped that after completing his education, that he would earn money and remove the family's financial difficulties. But Shashi had renounced the world for the realization of God. Whenever he thought of his father and mother, he felt a great anguish of heart. Many a time he said to his friends with tears in his eyes, I am at a loss as to my duty. Alas, I could not serve my parents. I could not be of any use to them. What great hope they had placed in me. On account of our poverty, my mother did not have any jewelry. I cherished the desire to buy some for her. But now all my hopes are frustrated. It is impossible for me to return home. My master asked me to renounce lust and greed, and I simply cannot return home. When I read that, and also remember Vivekananda's family also, his father had passed away, and they didn't have enough money even for food, and Vivekananda desperately wanted to renounce, for his spiritual life, but really struggled because he honestly felt that if he renounced, his family would starve to death. And this is a very telling passage for me, because I see in my own self, I waver, because this is really a test as I read this as a monk. Are you firm in your conviction that the one most important thing is the realization of God? Do we really see and believe that the one most important thing in our life is love, the love of God, the love of our brothers and sisters, right, and our service? And when I read something like this, I feel myself feeling his guilt, I feel that resolve kind of loosen a little bit. Oh, no, you have to take care of your mother. You have to take care of the family, and it just, you argue with it inside. And yet the both of them, look at that intense renunciation they had, because they both, even though they struggled and begged God in prayer in the temple itself to take care of their families. Vivekananda at least was enough, got a promise from Ramakrishna that the Divine Mother would always provide just enough money for them to have simple food and rough clothing for his family. I don't know about Prasanna, but I just really take lesson from their single-pointed commitment. That must have been incredibly difficult to do, to walk away from your family's need of you and to make that renunciation. After Sri Ramakrishna's passing away, Shashi's father had hoped that his son would come back to his family. The boy had spent a few days at home, but immediately after the establishment of the new monastery, he had begun to frequent it, and after a few days had decided to remain there as one of the members. Every now and then his father came to the monastery to persuade him to come home, but he had not succeeded. That must have been brutal. Wow. This day, on learning that his father had come, Shashi fled the monastery by another door. He did not want to meet him. Shashi's father knew M. They paced the upper veranda together and talked. Shashi's father: who is in charge of this place? Narendra alone is the cause of all of this mischief. For a while, all these young men returned home and devoted themselves to their studies. M. There is no master here. They are all equals. What can Narendra do? Can a man renounce home against his own will? Have we householders, for instance, been able to give up our homes altogether? Shashi's father: you are doing the right thing. You are serving both the world and God. Can't one practice religion after your method? That is exactly what we want Shashi to do. Let him live at home and come here too. You have no idea how much his mother weeps for him. M became sad and said nothing. Shashi's father: and if you speak of searching for holy men, I know where to find a good one. Let Shashi go to him. Rakal and M were walking on the veranda to the east of Kali Tapasvi's room. Rakal earnestly: M, let us practice some sadhana. We have renounced home for good. When someone says you have not realized God by renouncing home, then why all this fuss? Narendra gives a good retort. He says, because we could not attain Ram, must we live with Shyam and beget children? Are those the only two options? Every now and then Narendra says nice things. You had better ask him. M, what you say is right. I see that you too have become restless for God. Rakal: M, how can I describe the state of my mind? Today at noontime I felt a great yearning for the Narmada. M, please practice sadhana, otherwise you will not succeed. Even Shukadeva was afraid of this world. That is why immediately after his birth he fled the world. His father asked him to wait, but he ran straight away. M, yes, the Yoga Upanishad describes how Shukadev fled the world of Maya. It also describes Vyasa's conversation with Shuka. Vyasa asked his son to practice religion in the world, but Shuka said that the one essential thing is the lotus feet of God. He also expressed his disgust with worldly men for getting married and living with women. Rakal: many people think that it is enough not to look at a face of a woman, but what will you gain merely by turning your eyes to the ground at the sight of a woman? Narendra put it very well last night when he said, woman exists for a man as long as he has lust. Free from lust, one sees no difference between a man and a woman. M, how true that is. Children do not see the difference between man and woman. Rakal: therefore I say that we must practice spiritual discipline. How can one attain knowledge without going beyond Maya? Let us go to the big hall. Some gentlemen have come from Bharanagore. Narendra is talking with them. Let's go and listen. M did not enter the room. He was pacing outside. He overheard some of the conversation. Narendra: there is no fixed time or place for the sandhya or other devotions. Gentlemen: sir, can one realize God through spiritual practice alone? Narendra: realization depends on God's grace. Sri Krishna says in the Gita, the Lord, O Arjuna, dwells in the hearts of all beings, causing them by his Maya to revolve as if mounted on a machine. Take refuge in him with all of your heart, O Bharata. By his grace will you attain supreme peace and the eternal abode. Without the grace of God, mere worship and prayer do not help at all. Therefore, one should take refuge in him. You know, this is a very important teaching, actually, this idea of taking refuge in God alone and nothing else. You know, to have a working relationship with the divine. You know, this takes me back. I remember when I'd been in the monastery, 3 years. There was just me, Swami, and Tyagisha, the other brahmachari. And Tyagisha left the monastery, and that left just me and Swami in that monastery. And Swami would be gone all day, and so I was just left alone, kind of rattling around that old Victorian building. And I'd been doing it for about 3 months because Tyagisha had left about 3 months earlier. And I was feeling quite depressed and quite lonely. And so I remember just standing at the top of the stairs, kind of looking at that famous picture of the Madonna and Child that Ramakrishna had that spiritual experience with. It used to hang in the monastery there. And I would often stand and just kind of stare at it. And Swami came in from the office next door, so he came in on the lower level there, and he looked up and saw me standing at the railing. And he says, "Oh, see, what is this?" And I told him, I said, "Maharaj, I'm just feeling so depressed and alone here." I said, I just, Greg's been gone, and I just wander around alone, and I just don't know if I can do this, And so he started on this way up the stairs, and I was expecting that something from him when he got to the top, a good pat on the back and say, "Oh, don't worry, you'll be fine," whatever, just something, But he came up those stairs and he walked right past me, didn't say a word, didn't even look at me, just I turned around, I was like, and he went in his room, and just before he closed the door, he looked out at me and he said, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world, he said, "So go to the shrine," and shut his door. And I was furious. I was like, this guy doesn't care about me at all. He doesn't care whether I'm here or not. But I went in, and went into the shrine like I was told, and I sat in there. And it was one of the most beneficial times that I've ever had before the shrine. Because I understood as I sat there that day that I had never really believed in God. I realized that day that God was not a solution to my life's problems. It was just he was just sort of, I don't know exactly what role he was playing, just sort of security-wise, I guess. And seeing that, just realizing that if I got lonely, I called friends, that I had 1,000 refuges that I could choose from, go down and browse YouTube shorts for a few minutes. Of course, that dismality wasn't in the world yet, but, that kind of thing. And I really began to look at that in my life and to see that I had built all of these little refuges that would distract my mind. Because I understood there's only one reason, well, not only one reason, but the major reason I think that God tells us to take refuge only in that is because that's the only place where things actually get dealt with, actually get changed. The divine is this moment, and in this moment is where we do all of our work. And with that blessing of the awareness of God, we're led in the right direction, and we're able to solve those issues that really drive us toward our distractions. Because if you're not going to God and you're not having deep work in your time before the Lord, then that leaves a trace of guilt, that leaves a trace of struggle inside, and your mind won't let you be comfortable. Even though the grace of God is abundant, it says in Corinthians 13 that he never keeps a record of rights and wrongs, that's not his business, that he manifests pure love in the moment. And if we're not taking care of our issues by working through them under that power there, then all that we can do is hide, get a little distraction. And if you look at it, all of the refuges that you create in the world for yourself, they just distract you for a few moments. You go to the movie and you have a great time and you forget all your troubles, but the movie's over and it hands you back all of your troubles to go home with. Nothing changes. You go out drinking, you get a few moments respite, some pleasure of some sort, but you wake up the next morning with your headache, back in the same set of problems that you went to the bar for. And when you come to understand that that's the nature of this world, that's the nature of of desires and pleasures in this world, then you can make a switch. Touch the love within you. Find security in that love that's within you, that image of the beloved that's within you. Know that that's your value, not your behavior, not your rate of growth, not your success or failures, but the grace of the beloved that dwells in the heart of everyone. And this is what he's really begging him to do, talking to him. And being pointed to the fact that it is grace that brings us forward. Grace is what allows us to grow, to change. Without that grace, we couldn't transcend. We couldn't see our faults and move forward. Without the grace of God, mere worship and prayer do not help at all. Therefore, one should take refuge in God. And what does it mean to take refuge in God? It means that you've been beaten, right? It means you've lost the battle. It means you've realized, I can't do this on my own. I can't fix my life to create a saint out of myself, right? He says you know that you can't do it, but take refuge. That means you turn to the beloved with all of your faults, and you take refuge in grace, right? You take refuge in grace. And refuge means that the beloved gives you refuge. He takes responsibility for you. You turn and he'll help you to remove those struggles over time. But you see, it's the struggles and the constant turning to God that is the means by which we understand grace. It's the means that we ultimately become convinced of an unconditional love, because we can't learn that in this world, right? There is no unconditional love here. But when we continually turn to the beloved and continually just struggle and just push forward and constantly learn to accept grace, because that's our only choice, either to accept grace or to hide. That's the choice in life. Accept grace or be distracted. And so by continually going and accepting grace and continually finding that it relieves the pain inside, that it relieves that pressure inside, and it allows intimacy. You learn intimacy with God through struggling, through facing yourself, and through surrendering, and going in faith to the beloved, knowing that that you will be well, that you will be taken care of. Without the grace of God, mere worship and prayer do not help at all. Therefore, one should take refuge in him. Gentlemen, may we now and then disturb you? Narendra, please come whenever you like. We take our baths in the Ganges at your ghat. Gentlemen, I don't mind that. But please, see that the others don't use it. Narendra, we shall not use your ghat if that is what you mean. Gentlemen, no, I didn't mean exactly that. But if you see other people using it, then you'd better not go. It was dusk. The evening worship was over. The devotees, as usual, sang in chorus, Jaya Shiva Omkara. Afterwards, they assembled in the room of the Danas, and M too was seated there. Prasanna was reading from the Guru Gita. Narendra sang, I salute the eternal teacher who is the embodiment of bliss of Brahman, the essence of knowledge and liberation, the giver of supreme joy, who is all-pervading, like the Akasha, and is the goal of the Vedanta's teachings, who is one, eternal, stainless, pure, and is the constant witness of all things, who dwells beyond all moods, transcending the three gunas. Narendra sang again, there is none higher than the Guru, none better than the teacher. This is what Shiva has declared. I shall sing of the blessed Guru, the supreme Brahman. I shall worship the blessed Guru, the supreme Brahman. I shall meditate on the blessed Guru, the supreme Brahman. I shall bow down to the blessed Guru, the supreme Brahman. As Narendra sang these verses from the Guru Gita in his melodious voice, the minds of the devotees became steady, like a candle flame in a windless place. I think this is one of the secrets of spiritual life here, is that we see that at some point in our spiritual struggle, our effort changes. In the beginning we try, and we try to meditate, we try to calm our mind, we try to control our bodies and minds, and we struggle and we struggle and we struggle, and we have this idea of attaining liberation, of becoming free, of having enlightenment, and everything is kind of tucked off for an attainment in some grand day in the future, leaving us kind of devoid of company, the company of God in the moment, because we're working for something to come. And that's a big mistake, because we see in this song how all of his love for God has come from the struggle and from the fact of grace, And that what happens in spiritual life is that you at some point stop this search for attainment, and you come to realize that this moment is all you've ever had and all you've ever experienced. And so your practice becomes about this moment, right? And in the gospel here, one of the verses I read about 2 weeks ago, Ramakrishna makes an emphatic statement of strive to enjoy God. He said the only striving is the striving to enjoy God. And so in your practice, don't work for something to come in the future. There is no future. That's a concept of mind. There's only now. And so in this moment now, strive to enjoy God. When you sit to do your practice, strive to enjoy God. And what is that striving? Accept that grace, accept that gift. Know that you are valuable because of the image of the beloved that dwells within you. It's not what you're doing. When God looks at you, he doesn't see the fallen you that you see. He doesn't see the you with all of the faults and the scars and the mistakes. What does he see? He sees that image of himself that he placed there when he put you together the first time. Right? He sees that, and he loves you for that, and he will bring you home for that. Nothing else matters. And so you can be confident in that grace. And what happens then is our practice turns from a striving to an offering. We know that we're fine. We know that we're whole. We know that we can touch and experience the love of God if we're sincere and earnest in our practice. And we can be fed by that time with the beloved, and we can learn to enjoy the divine. So we can give up this striving, give up this fear, give up this shame, give up these regrets and whatnot, and just enjoy the presence, enjoy the grace, and then your life becomes offering instead of striving. You find that peace that passes understanding, that is the image of God within you. When the mind begins to silence, right, and all the efforts begin to fall away, as this inner presence has become bigger and stronger and becomes the first thing you notice in yourself, that carries you through the day. And that's how you reach steady wisdom, because you have created an atmosphere within your own shrine of the heart. And so you walk through this world as if in a temple, because you inhabit the body, which is a temple, right? And that is your atmosphere. That is what you're carrying. That is how you feel. And all of the other stuff going on outside can't quite push all the way through to disturb you, right? That's when spiritual life is getting good. When a lot of the initial work of cleaning up the mess is being put behind us, right? And then we get to enjoy. As Narendra sang the verses from the Guru Gita, in his melodious voice, the minds of the devotees became steady, like a candle flame in a windless place. Rakal was seated in Kali Tapasvi's room. Prasanna sat near him, and M too was there. Rakal had renounced the world, leaving behind his wife and child. A fire of intense renunciation burned day and night in his heart. He was thinking seriously of going away by himself to the bank of the Narmada or to some other holy place. Still, he was trying to persuade Prasanna not to run away from the monastery. Rakal to Prasanna, "Where do you want to go, running away from here? Here you are in the company of holy men. Wouldn't it be foolish to run away from this? Where will you find another like Narendra?" Prasanna, "My parents live in Calcutta. I'm afraid of being drawn by their love. That is why I want to flee to a distant place." Rakal, "Can our parents love us as intensely as Guru Maharaj?" Meaning Sri Ramakrishna. "What have we done for him to deserve all of this love? Why was he so eager for our welfare in body and mind and soul? What have we done for him to deserve all of this?" M to himself, Rakal is right. Therefore, a person like Sri Ramakrishna is described as the ocean of mercy without any reason. Prasanna to Rakal, "Don't you yourself feel like running away from here?" Rakal, Yes, now and then. I have the fancy to spend a few days on the bank of the Narmada. I say to myself, let me go to a place like that and practice sadhana in a garden. Again, I feel a strong desire to practice the Panchatapa for 3 days, but I hesitate to live in a garden that belongs to worldly people. Tarak and Prasanna were talking in the room of the Danas. Tarak had lost his mother. His father, like Rakal's father, had married a second time. Tarak himself had married but had lost his wife. Now the monastery was his home. He too was trying to persuade Prasanna to live here. Prasanna, I have neither jnana nor prema. What have I in the world for a support? Tarak, it is no doubt difficult to attain jnana, but how can you say you have no prema, no love? Prasanna, I have not yet wept for God. How can I say I have prema? What have I realized in all these days? Tarak, but you've seen the Master. And why do you say that you have no jnana? Prasanna, what sort of jnana are you talking about? Jnana means knowledge. Knowledge of what? Certainly of God. But I am not even sure of the existence of God. Tarak, yes, that's true. According to the jnani, there is no God. M to himself, the Master used to say that those who seek God pass through the state that Prasanna is now experiencing. In that state, sometimes one doubts the very existence of God. I understand that Tarak is now reading Buddhistic philosophy. That is why he says that according to the jnani, God does not exist. But Sri Ramakrishna used to say that the jnani and the bhakta will ultimately arrive at the same destination. Yeah, it's like, the jnanis see the work of keeping the attention on your own attention, keeping your attention on attention within yourself, and that you try and hold your mind there, And for the bhakta, really it's the same practice, but instead of keeping our awareness on our awareness, right, we're chanting the name of God and keeping our mind on the presence. Exact same process, exact same purpose. Both of them eventually will remove the ego, will undo the ego. And all spiritual practices are for that one thing, mostly, to rid you of your ego, because ego and Maya are synonyms. Ego is the veil that prevents you from seeing God, right? It's really kind of a fun reason. I was sitting and pondering this last night. This is not from the scriptures. This is an extra little piece, no charge. I was laying there last night and thinking about egoism and thinking about how did this all come to be. And I was thinking about that scripture in the Gita where it says, that the soul cannot be wedded, it cannot be burned, it can't be affected by anything in the changing world, that we are separate from that. We're spirit, not material, right? And so I thought about that. I thought, well, we are that ultimately. And so this self that we are cannot live in this world, right? It cannot be in this world. And so it has to, we have to live in this world, we have to be able to change. And we in our nature are the absolute unchanging, the divine principle of pure love and pure wisdom, right? And so the world of change is the mind, right? Shakti is the mind, the active mind. Mind with me and mind dropped into it is this that we're experiencing now, right? All of it within our own mind, handed to us by our senses at this moment. And we've created this world of symbol, right? But we can't live in this world because we're not within time. We're not within space or causation. They are in us, right? And so to live in this world, to experience this world, we have to create a thought of ourself, because our self can't fit in this world, can't come to this world. So we create a thought of ourself, and we place that thought in the mind amongst all of this constant, unrepeating change. And through that thought of ourself, we gather attributes which we don't have by our nature. We are beyond attributes in our true nature. So the ego collects these trinkets, how handsome I am, how old I am, what country I live in, how much money I have, all these things. It's always grabbing anything. And it never has enough. Why? Because it really doesn't exist in this world. We really don't exist in this world. And so we're eternally insecure as a body-mind in this world, which is why we collect desires, right? Always trying to shore up our confidence, shore up our security, shore up our sense of love, shore up our sense of being, right? Because we're living merely as a thought, and we're not being, which is the absolute unchanging self, right? And so we have to move our consciousness, our awareness, out of the mind, the constant flow of change, and place our awareness on the self, which is in the heart, in the shrine of the heart. And in that shrine of the heart, you find your steadiness, you find your strength, you find your person of steady wisdom, right? And in that shrine, you are in communion. And this is what we enjoy when we sit to do practice. Meditation's not just about a silent mind. It's about being with God. It's about consciously sharing yourself with the divine self, with the divine beloved. It's about absorbing a confidence in that constant love, that undying love that doesn't have a condition or a reason for it to be given. You simply have to accept it, right? And spiritual life is quite difficult because to accept an infinite love, to accept an infinite mercy on our part is going to require an infinite humility. Because it's not until you realize you can do nothing, that you have never been the doer in this world, that you are able actually to empty your arms completely so that you can accept infinite grace, you can accept infinite love. Right? And so the challenge in our spiritual life is the acceptance of an infinite love when we, in our ego self, know that we could never deserve such a thing. And so it will force us beyond the thought of ourself. It will force us into the absolute unchanging, undying reality within. And only in that state, can we accept this gift in its entirety. And to accept it in its entirety is ecstasy, is freedom, moksha, right? To walk always with the beloved until you're tired of tasting sugar, and then you just let go, dissolve, and become sugar in it. Narendra and Prasanna were talking in the meditation room. Recall, we already read that one. Narendra, did you notice what Krishna said? Mounted on a machine, the Lord, by his Maya, causes all beings to revolve as if mounted on a machine. To seek to know God? You are but a worm among worms. And you to know God? Just reflect a moment. What is a man? It is said that each one of the myriads of stars that shine overhead represents a solar system. This earth of ours is part of only one solar system, and even that is too big for us. Like an insect, man walks about on this earth, which compared to the sun is but a tiny dot. Narendra sang, We are born, O Lord, in the dust of the earth, and our eyes are blinded by that dust. With dust we toy like children at play. O give us assurance, thou help of the weak. Will you cast us out of your lap, O Lord, for a single mistake? Will you turn away and abandon us to our helplessness? Oh, then we shall never be able to rise, but we shall lie forever dazed and undone. Mere babes are we, O Father, with baby minds. At every step we stumble and fall. Why then must you show us your terrible face? Why, Lord, must we ever hold to your frown? Small are we. Oh, do not be angry with us, but tenderly speak to us when we do wrong. For you raise us up 100 times. 100 times we shall fall again. What else can one do with a helpless mind? Then he said to Prasanna, Surrender yourself. Surrender yourself at his feet. Resign yourself completely to his will. Narendra sang again in an ecstatic mood, O Lord, I am your servant. I am your servant. Your servant am I. O Lord, you are my master. You are my master. My master are you. and from you I have received 2 pieces of bread and a cowpin. When I sing your name, devotion wells up in my heart and shields me from harm. You are the Master, the all-compassionate. This I repeat, O Lord. Your servant Kabir has taken refuge at your feet. Narendra said to Prasanna, don't you remember Sri Ramakrishna's words? God is the hill of sugar, and you are but an ant. 1 grain is enough to fill your stomach, and you think of bringing home the entire hill? Don't you remember what the Master said about Shukadeva? Even Shukadeva was a big ant at the most. That is why I scolded Kali, saying, you fool, do you want to measure God with your tape and foot rule? God is the ocean of mercy. Be his slave and take refuge in him. He will show compassion. Pray to him. Protect me always with your compassionate face. Lead me from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. Reveal yourself to me and protect me always with your compassionate face. All right, we'll stop there today. We've got a few things here. Tomorrow, Swami Vedarupananda is going to be speaking in the morning at 11, right here, on the puzzle of personal identity. Wednesday, nope, no Wednesday class this week. Should be okay. All right, there is going to be on the Swami Trigunatita this Wednesday at 5 p.m. And next Saturday, well, there will be a class. I won't be giving it, though. Yeah, but it'll be April. That'll be April, okay. So that's on another calendar. All right. Go forward. Wonderful, encouraging to see everyone. This is your place. Come and enjoy it. Jai Ma.